Hello and welcome back to Below the Curve Gaming. It's Ben, and today we're going to try something a little bit different. So firstly, there's not going to be a game this week, unfortunately. Our schedules couldn't fit one in. So instead what we're going to do is I'm starting a new section for the channel, which will be a faction breakdown like we've done in the past with the JSA and the Cosmoflot, but rather than doing one long video, the plan is to go through profile by profile in shorter, easier to kind of digest sections. So the faction that we're going to look at will be O-12, and I'm going to start with both O-12 vanilla profiles and also cover their Starmada inclusion as well at the same time. I do have the entire O-12 range and I'm slowly painting them up. So once each unit is fully painted up with all the different variants, then I'll do a kind of short breakdown on the profile, their uses in both vanilla O-12 and also Starmada, where that differs from vanilla. So the first unit I'm going to look at is the Kappas. These are the kind of order generators, the core infantry, line infantry of the O-12, and they are going to be available in 3 different places. So firstly, there's 3 available with combi rifles that came in the Wildfire pack. Now these are also repackaged into the O-12 Action pack, and thirdly they were available through Defiance. The second option for Kappas is through the Starmada Action pack. Now this is to offer some of the SWC models. So you get a Kappa Hacker with a submachine gun, you get a Kappa with a multi-sniper rifle, and a Kappa with a heavy machine gun. To date, this is the only place to get these 3 models, as far as I'm aware. And the final model, taking it up to 7, is a model in the middle, and that's a paint set Kappa. So it's a Kappa Paramedic, that is combi rifle medkit, and it's available through the Vallejo paint set for O-12. So that's how to get all 7 of the Kappa models currently. So moving on to the profile. So Kappas are line troops. They have a cube and they are regular infantry. They're light infantry. They have a move of 4-4, so standard for light infantry. CC 14, BS 12, which is pretty good for light infantry, kind of comparable with Pan-Oceania Fusiliers, which are some of the better line infantry in the game. Fizz 10, Whip 13, which is yet again quite high. Armour 1, BTS 0, 1 wound, Silhouette 2. They've got availability total for O-12 vanilla. Now we'll talk about Starmada in a wee second and how that differentiates from vanilla, but availability total for vanilla. They have 1 special skill, which is Immunity Shock, which is good for light infantry. However, it would be nice to see Courage in addition to this. But anywho, so moving on to the profiles themselves. Now, there's 8 different profiles, although some of the weapons loadouts are the same. So the base Kappa is a Kappa with combi rifle, pistol, close combat weapon, and it comes in at 12 points, which is a wee bit high in comparison to some of the other light infantry. However, because you've got that ballistic skill of 12 and the willpower of 13, I think that's why you're paying just a bit of a premium for them. Combi rifle is nice as well, coming from my Ariadna days of rifles. Having a combi rifle just gives you that extra reliability at shorter ranges. Then they have a heavy machine gun profile, which is a heavy machine gun, pistol, close combat weapon. Now it's 1 SWC and 20 points. That's certainly pretty good, I think, for what you're getting. A BS-12 with an HMG is reasonable. Certainly it's on the, yet again, the higher end, I feel, of the points. Often you're kind of looking at being late teens for the HMGs, but I think because you're paying yet again for that BS-12 immunity shock, then yeah, with a heavy machine gun, probably why it's on the slightly higher end of that. Multi-sniper rifle is 1.5 SWC and 19 points. It comes with a multi-sniper rifle, pistol, close combat weapon, similar to the HMG, paying a wee bit more for your higher ballistic skill, and certainly a good ARO piece. The HMG, I think, is more of an attack piece, and the multi-sniper rifle, if you're looking for more of a defensive piece there. However, talking about defensive pieces, the missile launcher, pistol, close combat weapon, yet again 1.5 SWC and 17 points, a couple of points cheaper. It's a bit of a kind of toss-up between the two, depending on what you're looking for them to do. In terms of the multi-sniper rifle, you've got the choice between two types of ammunition. Double action at burst 2, damage 15, and it's obviously got the trait of anti-material, or you can fire AP or shock, burst 2, damage 15. So depending on what you want to do with it, does give you that opportunity to kind of target different models and use different kind of loadouts depending on what's going to be more suitable for the target. However, with the missile launcher, you're kind of split between either blast mode for the impact template circular, which is one shot, explosive and damage 14, or you can fire hit mode, which is explosive and AP and anti-material for damage 14, burst 1 as well. So it depends if you need that blast or not. I personally feel that the missile launcher is possibly a better ARO piece than the multi-sniper rifle, because unless you're in a link team, you're going to be limited in terms of the shots you get with it, and if you are in a link team, you'll obviously get the benefit from both the burst on both, but the opportunity certainly with the missile launcher to lay down a circular template against a fire team or the like can mean that you're hitting more than just the target, so it can be beneficial. The Kappa hacker, so it's a hacker with a hacking device, submachine gun, pistol and close combat weapon, so quite short range loadout. However, it's 0.5 SWC and 12 points, so it's very cheap and no more expensive than a combi rifle one because you're dropping that kind of range. So with the submachine gun, it's quite short range, certainly over kind of 16 it starts to get into the negatives, but it does have the potential to drop down AP or shock, which is quite beneficial. However, with it, if you are at short range and you've got the hacking device, you might want to do a hack attack instead. It is a hacking device as opposed to a killer hacker, so it does have a bit of versatility, but maybe not able to push out as much damage. Moving on, forward observer, standard kind of combi rifle flash pulse. It does have a deployable repeater, which is something that I often miss with this forward observer profile, so something I'll have to be aware of moving forward, and I haven't really used that as yet. Pistol, close combat weapon, 0 SWC, 14 points. And then last two profiles, the paramedic, combi rifle medkit, pistol, close combat weapon, also 0 SWC and 14 points. And the Kappa lieutenant, combi rifle, pistol, CC weapon. Now this is 12 points, but it is a full SWC. It's not something I would personally take as a lieutenant unless it was really pushed for points. I prefer for the 3 points more than this, and the lack of the SWC, to go for Cho as my lieutenant. She's not really offering anything particularly less as an offensive piece in this. She does have one less BS, I believe, at BS 11 rather than the BS of 12. However, you are kind of bringing in a nanopulsar, which is quite nice, and you've got then the hollow mask, which is a massive buff as well. One of the benefits with Joe certainly is an increased willpower 14, and a BTS of 3 as well, so a bit more protected than the Kappa lieutenant. But it's an option if you're tight for points. So what kind of profiles do I often take then? For vanilla, I kind of stick, generally speaking, to the combi rifle profiles. I haven't used the kind of ARO pieces as much, likes of the multi-sniper rifle or the missile launcher. Something that I may look to start bringing in. I've obviously painted them all up now, so I will be able to include them in my list. However, I find that with them, I often want to just pay a few more points for a better ARO piece. Not to say that it's these are bad by any stretch, but I just feel that there's more preferable options. Certainly, I mean, this is quite a lot more points, but the likes of the Epsilon is seen as one of the premium kind of options in O-12 for this, with its high BS of 13 or mid to high BS. It's got multi-spec visor level 2, also has mimetism for those shots coming back, and then has the same options, multi-sniper rifle. It's a heavy machine gun or shock marksman, so it loses a missile launcher option, but certainly able to offer a really good multi-sniper rifle option. Now, the Kappa obviously is a lot cheaper, and it's maybe about bringing more of these in. 19 points against 35, I believe, for the 34, sorry, for the Epsilon. However, when you are limited with your SWCs in some ways, you may feel that just with those extra points, you might get a bit more bang for your buck, as it were. Other options I often look for is models like the Lynx, although with the multi-sniper rifle it's maybe better on the active turn due to its hidden deployment and its surprise attack. However, once it's activated, it can then potentially bring out some good AROs, particularly when it's got mimetism and -6 as well. So it becomes a bit more of a challenge for them to take it on there. Other than that, I tend to look at some of the copper bots, so likes of the Millicent for the missile launcher, 17 points, so it's about the same points. It's 1.5 SWC as well. It's got the same ballistic skill. It does have guided, which obviously can be quite beneficial if you can set that up. With remote presence, it's got that extra level of unconsciousness. It's also silhouette free, so I believe it's slightly lower down, so it depends on what you can, where you can place it. If that then becomes quite good for limiting how many things are going to be able to draw line of sight for it, and meaning that you're only going to get your AROs against stuff that you really want it to be using them against. And also it comes with courage as well, so it's something I would tend to look at rather than the Kappa for the missile launcher, but certainly something that could be put in instead. So the ones I tend to look at are the what I would class as the kind of order monkeys, as it were, for the Kappa, so the combi rifle, 0 SWC 12 point options, and this can often be used for kind of hide the lieutenant as well. That if you've got a couple of these in vanilla and you've taken the lieutenant, or your opponent thinks you may have taken the lieutenant, then it does mean that you've got that opportunity to mask them in a way as well. The other ones I quite like is the paramedic and forward observer, just for some cheap specialists at 14 points, no SWCs. It can take some of the pressure off some of the either more expensive or more niche specialists that you want to kind of use for certain roles. Hacker's one that I often put in just because I've got some extra SWC at the end. I may upgrade one of my combi rifles to a hacker just to give myself a wee bit of protection. It's often more protection for likes of Joe or that rather than to use on the offensive side. And yeah, again, quite good as a specialist. Moving on to Starmada. Now, the profiles are all the same in Starmada, the points are all the same, although the availability does reduce. So it goes from availability to total to availability 5. The one thing that you're bringing in with Starmada is the option of fire teams. Now, the Kappas can be involved in one fire team now, which is the security fire team. And in some ways, I think with the changes to fire teams, they've actually lost out a wee bit, because in the security fire team, there's a lot of good options there. So the security fire team can be a Harris or a Corps, and it requires either or both, depending. The minimum should be made up of Kappa or blue coats. They're both the kind of star, so they have to be in there to kind of build the fire team. And you can take up to 5 Kappas, up to 4 blue coats. Raven Eyes are 0 to 2, and Cho is 0 to 1. And they all have the security keyword, or kind of designation, depending on what you want to call it. So they will all count as the same unit in terms of your composition bonuses, which is great for getting them up to the kind of BS of +3, and also you're getting your Discover +3 as well. So what does this mean for Kappas in some ways in terms of the changes here? Well, personally, I think that you're going to see less Kappas included in these fire teams, because realistically, you're limited in terms of what's going to be a potential hit piece in this fire team core, particularly, in that you're losing out the ability to bring in some of the kind of wild cards, likes of kind of Cyclops or maybe a Bronze or something that's going to have some good options for being a kind of point man. So you're maybe going to see the heavy machine gun coming in here as a kind of active turn high burst model to lead the fire team, as it were. However, with Armour 1, Phys 10 and BS 12 is good when it goes up to obviously potentially BS 15 with the full bonuses. However, certainly Phys 10, you're not going to be dodging a lot. And Armour 1, unless you're in cover, you're not certainly going to be making a lot of saves. And even in cover, you're probably going to be limited in terms of what you can realistically soak, as it were. You've only got the 1 wound, and you're likely to have in this fire team, as your kind of model to pick things back up, you may have the paramedic, which is obviously not as good as a doctor in that regards. So I could see potentially the heavy machine gun, or maybe one of the multi-sniper rifle or missile launcher, if you were looking for more of a kind of defensive fire team. I mean, the multi-sniper rifle with its burst 2 is okay on the active turn, certainly. You can obviously get an additional burst for the fire team and obviously be firing out like the double action shots as well. It's quite good, whereas the missile launcher is more of a reactive turn in my mind. You may see the hacker or one of the other specialists in there. However, I think with the inclusion of the Raven Eye, which are coming in at 12 points now as well, now they are forward observers. Now you've got submachine gun, E-Marats, Flash Pulse, and then EM or Cyber Mines, depending on the profile. There's a lieutenant option as well. All for 0 SWC, 12 points. Now they are BS 11. But immunity shock, so the same as the Kappa, 9-layer forward observer, and a deactivator. That way that it maybe takes precedence over the inclusion of the Kappa forward observer. The blue coats being another option are a bit more expensive. Now they don't have much in the way of specialists. They've got a lieutenant and then they've got different weapons. There is a Red Fury in there which may kind of compete with the Kappa HMG for kind of point man for the fire team if you're looking for that high burst. We've also shot marksman profiles, adhesive launchers, +1 burst, boarding shotguns and submachine guns. They kind of offer something a wee bit shorter range generally, but quite good options there. And then you've got Cho as well, which is going to possibly be the lieutenant option, which we've discussed a wee bit in vanilla. So in terms of kind of the makeup of the fire team, what I've certainly been trying myself is looking at Cho is probably going to be a nailed-on inclusion in my mind, because unless I'm going to be running Hector as my lieutenant, or there are other options, but Hector's often one to go for if you're including him in the list. And perhaps you could take Saladin as well. He's another good option for a lieutenant. But Cho there could then be taken chain of command if one of these more obvious lieutenants is included. So that's already knocking down. If you're taking it as a core fire team, you're going to have 4. Then you're going to possibly have, you'll want maybe a Raven Eye in there for your forward observer. So that's down to 3. So you're going to be looking at maybe 2 Kappas in a blue coat, or maybe 3 Kappas if you're not taking any blue coats. The option and the opportunity in some ways of taking more Kappas these days, I think, is a bit more limited. They are still cheap orders, they're regular orders, which is always nice. However, if they're purely there to kind of fill those order slots, then you do have some nice remotes in our O-12 that offer regular orders and are cheaper. So the likes of the Kappa remote, which I believe comes in at 7 points. Now it's a flash pulse. It's not going to be the most dangerous remote, but it does have a repeater, it's immunity shock, it's mimetism, remote presence. So it's got a bit going for it as well. Or you can take an OCO with a combi rifle and flash pulse. Now these are a bit more expensive at 16 points, but they do have climbing plus, they've got sensor, they've got repeater, deactivator, triangulated fire and courage. So a lot going for them as well, although a slightly lower ballistic skill. So the kind of points of it, I suppose, looking over it, I think they are a good quality light infantry. They're relatively cheap at 12 points, obviously more expensive than some other light infantry, but some of the cheaper models we've got in the faction. However, I think they're maybe limited to, in vanilla, being kind of order fillers and potentially offering a bit of masking for who your lieutenant is. You may wish to take some as ARO pieces, but I couldn't really see you taking active turn shooters in the likes of the heavy machine gun. I think there's probably just better options out there, particularly for 1 SWC. You may want to look at something like the, now obviously a lot more expensive, but the beta troopers have some good options. Or if you're looking for that HMG, then looking at the Omega has, now it's 47 points, so over double the Kappa in terms of its BS14 mimetism -6 and armor 4. It's doing a different role as a heavy infantry, but if you're looking for an active turn shooter, then going cheap in the Kappa option is possibly not the best way forward. There is also the Peeler, which is 25 points 1 SWC, so you have 5 points more. The remote with a 360 visor. It is also total reaction for the defensive turn as well, climbing plus, so it's able to get up to locations. So potentially brings a bit more with it, although BS 11 as opposed to 12. In terms of Starmada, as I said, it's likely to fit into the security fire team, however maybe not as ubiquitous within Starmada as they may have been in the past. The models are stunning though. I really like the models. They bring quite a good feel to the O-12. Certainly you can see a lot of the design decisions in them that have then been kind of brought into the other units as well. So I did certainly enjoy painting them. So hopefully this has been a useful rundown of the Kappa. Any suggestions, if you've any comments, maybe that ways that you feel the Kappas work particularly well, that have maybe overlooked, and then feel free to drop them in the comment section below. These are just my thoughts on them, obviously. Not to say that in your meta things might not be quite different for you. So I will go through each unit in more detail as well. So some of the ones we've mentioned, obviously, like the Cho and some of the other options in the security fire team, I'll go over in their own section as well. So we'll get a bit more in depth into them in the future. But thanks very much for watching, and please like and subscribe.